This is the ultimate startup guide to poker, Texas Hold'em style. Let's go. Hi, I'm Chris and welcome to Playing Games. Please comment, like, and subscribe. It's time to ante up. This is my ultimate guide to Texas Hold'em. If you're just looking for the winning combinations, check out this link. If you're looking for other versions of poker, check out my playlist. Or if you just need the bare bones of Hold'em, check out this short. Poker didn't begin with Texas Hold'em style, but it's by far the most dominant way you'll see poker played today. If you want to know how it reached the top, check out this video. Texas Hold'em is best played with 6 to 10 players. It can be played with as few as 2, but I wouldn't recommend starting with less than 4 players. The object of Texas Hold'em is winner takes all, meaning only one player wins all the chips at the end. The goal is to create the strongest 5-card poker hand using a combination of your whole cards and the 5 community cards. In Texas Hold'em, each player is dealt 2 cards face down known as whole cards. These cards are yours and yours alone to use with the community cards. Over several rounds of betting, 5 additional cards are dealt face up in the middle of the table. These cards are the community cards, shared by all players, and any of these cards can be used along with their whole cards to build their 5-card poker hand. The community cards are dealt in 3 stages. The flop reveals the first 3 community cards. Then the turn reveals the 4th community card. Finally, the river reveals the 5th and final community card. Construct the best possible 5-card poker hand using any of the combinations of your 2 whole cards and the 5 community cards. You can use both of your whole cards with 3 community cards or 1 whole card with 4 community cards. There's a round of betting between each of the dealt card stages. If a bet is raised, all players must either match the raise, up the raise, or fold their cards, losing all previous bets. After the river and its final round of betting, any remaining players showdown and reveal their whole cards. The player with the best hand wins all the bets. Hold'em is winner takes all, meaning all of the money will go to one and only one winner at the end of the game. But poker isn't just about the cards you hold, it's also about strategy and deception. Players have the opportunity to bluff and convince others to fold better hands, adding an extra layer of excitement to the game. If the betting causes all but one player to fold, that lone remaining player wins the pot without having to show their cards, and we'll never really know if they're bluffing or not. So those are the basics. Now let's learn Hold'em one step at a time. What Hold'em shares with the other versions of poker are the winning combinations, from the lone high card to the royal flush, and in a little bit we'll dive into all the other ones in between. What you'll need. This is a betting game and here's what you'll need to play. A new 52-card French suited deck, betting tokens or chips, position markers, a timer or an app for betting blinds, and a 12-foot Soprasada sub from Emily's Pork Store. That one's sort of optional. Here are the cards. Any questions? You should use a new unmarked deck of cards. That way there's no suspicion as to whether it's been marked or tampered with in some way. But for this demonstration, we'll just use my deck. Next we have the chips. These tokens should have different colors to indicate different monetary values. In this set, the whites have the smallest value, then the blues, the reds, and finally the blacks have the highest value. I like to play low stakes poker with my friends. We each put in $20 and set the values of the chips to 10 cents for the whites, 20 cents for the blues, $1 for the reds, and $5 for each black. I don't recommend putting significant money into anything as speculative as gambling, so my advice is to keep the buy-in low and play for fun. What do I mean buy-in? Well, to join the game, all players must put in a certain amount of money to convert into chips. If our buy-in is $20, we give the role of the banker to someone, and they turn our buy-in cash into $20 worth of chips. The cash is kept safely aside until the end of the game when the victor trades in all of the chips for all the cash. If you're playing seriously, expect that each chip will match the money you've put in. We're playing casually, and the amount of chips won't perfectly line up with the dollar amount of our buy-in. The reason for that? We might not have enough chips to cover all players, or the math just probably won't line up without making some of the chips worth $2.10, and nobody wants that. Here's a suggestion of what to make values of the chips for our game. For $20, we get 10 white chips with a value of 10 cents each. 10 blue chips with a value of 20 cents each, 5 red chips with a value of $1 each, and 2 black chips worth $5 each. Yes, that sounds like you now have $18, but this is just for making the chip distribution easier, and since it's a winner-takes-all game, the winner gets all of those Tubmans at the end anyways. If you don't like that distribution, feel free to label the chips how you like. Okay, so we're almost ready to play. We've paid our money, received our chips, but now we have these 3 discs: a dealer, a big blind, and a small blind. Now these discs are optional, but they do help the flow of the game better. Positioning is very important in poker, and we need to know where the dealer is because everything will fall into place from where that dealer is seated. So it's really important to know if I'm the dealer, the small blind is this person, and then the big blind is this person here. That means that I would deal to the small blind, big blind, under the gun player, and then back to myself here. And play would actually begin not at the small blind or the big blind, but to the player after those 2 players. the person known as under the gun. So that the player after the big blind would be the first player to make a decision in the game. Again, the button and these discs are optional, but I do recommend having them. They'll just make the flow of the game much better. Once you've established who the dealer will be, put that button in front of them, then you'll know how the game lays out. Let's look at our gameplay milestones. Setup, blinds, dealing, and then our betting rounds. The pre-flop, the flop, the turn, the river. Finally, we have the showdown, and then the winner collects the winnings. After the winnings have been collected, we repeat this process. Again, the milestones are setup, which means shuffle the cards, the blinds, dealing, then our betting rounds, the pre-flop betting round, the flop betting round, the turn betting round, and the river betting round. If there are still players in after those rounds, there's a final showdown, after which the winner collects the winnings. Unless all but one player folds, there is a showdown, which means the remaining players show their cards. Whoever has the highest poker combination based on the 5 community cards and any of their hole cards wins. Here's the chart of poker winning combinations. If you need more detail on what each means and how they're decided, jump ahead to the chapter on poker ranking, where we'll go over each in excellent detail. Otherwise, feel free to use this chart. Okay, our setup milestone is complete. We have our chips and we know the positioning. After somebody's volunteered to start as a dealer for the first round, we place the dealer disc in front of them. These 2 other discs now go to the other 2 players, directly to the left of the dealer. The first is the small blind, the next is the big blind. These indicate that these players are forced to make an initial bet, even if they don't want to play this round. You may have heard of this as anteing, which it is. We'll start our game with a big blind of 20 cents, meaning if you want to play, you have to ante up or put 20 cents into the game. The big blind player does not have a choice. They must put the blind in even if they don't think they can win this round. The small blind must put up half the amount of the big blind, in this case, 10 cents. They can decide if they want to continue playing by adding another 10 cents on their turn, or fold their cards and leave it at that. Let me show you how. So our current blind is now this. The blind will change as the game progresses to keep the game moving faster. So right now it's 20 cents for a big blind. Later in the game it might be 40 cents. It might be a dollar even. And you could set a timer for half an hour, 40 minutes, however long you want. As that changes, the big blind will go up. But right now our big blind is 20 cents. So that's 2 of these whites they put in here. So it's very important to know where to position your chips when you're putting your chips in. You don't want to put them near your pile. You want to put them sort of in front of where your cards are going to be. This is the pot here. When all bets are in, these chips will move away from the players and into the pot. But while we're sort of betting and adding or raising, they stay in front of the players until the end of one of the betting rounds, and then they go into the pot, the main pot, and that money can't be touched until the end. So the big blind puts in their 2 10-cent pieces, and they are playing. And the small blind has to put up 10 cents, not 20 cents yet. They can decide if they want to play the game when they see their cards. So they put in their 10 cents. The big blind puts in the full blind, 20 cents, and then half. None of the other players put in money until the cards have been dealt. But why do these players have to ante or bet even if they don't want to? Well, if you think about it, the game would be kind of boring if players only played when they thought they had a winning hand. This taxation without representation keeps the chips in the game moving. But if you're a libertarian, I can't explain it to you. For the rest of us, though, don't worry. The dealer button will move along, and the big and small blinds will move 1 player clockwise after each round, so that everybody gets the honor of a forced bet. Okay, after our big and small blind players have put their money in, the dealer deals. Before the deal, the dealer would have shuffled the cards, and the player to their right could choose to cut the cards to ensure no funny business. Now we're on to the next stage of Hold'em, the deal. The dealer deals 1 card to each player starting clockwise with the small blind player first, and then themselves last. They then deal a 2nd card to each player in the same order. These 2 cards are called the hole cards. They are meant only for the player who received them, and make sure no one else sees your hole cards. All players can look at these cards now and decide if they want to play. These cards would be face down, but I'll flip them over just to show you gameplay. Let's say the under the gun player likes their card. In this case, they have an ace and a 9, and they think that's strong enough to play. They have 2 main options. One, they can call. Calling means the player is willing to continue with the current cards without raising the stakes. That means they put in the current bid amount, which in this case is the big blind of 20 cents. If they do this, play goes to the next player. So to call, you take the amount that's currently in play, 20 cents, and you put that in with your 20 cents of chips. The player could have also raised the stakes. This means that they would call the big blind and then place more chips in front of them. They announce the amount they want to raise, making sure that everyone at the table can see their raised chips. So if instead of 20 cents, they could put in 40 cents. Players typically raise when they think they have a great hand to increase the pot. or if they want to pressure other players to fold, reducing competition, or both. Many people will play that in order to raise under the gun, the player has to raise at least double the amount of the big blind. And that's what we've done here. If the player did not like their cards, they can fold, meaning they don't have to add any chips, but they fold their cards and are out for this round. Let me just take a moment to explain how the chips move. Keep your chips close to your hand. When anteing, calling, or raising, you put those chips in front of your hand, indicating that they are in play. At the end of betting rounds, the rounds dealer takes all the in-play chips and places them in the middle of the table, known as the pot. Only the dealer moves the chips from the players to the pot, and they only do that after a round of betting has ended. Okay, so after the under the gun player has finished by either folding, calling, or raising, play goes to the next clockwise player, and they make the same choice of folding, calling, or raising. If the previous player raised the bet, that new running total must be matched or raised by the next player to stay in the game, like this. So after the under the gun player has raised, it would go to the next player. If there are more than 4 people, there would be players in between that player and the dealer. But as the dealer position here, I look at my cards, I have pocket 10s. That means I have a pair of something as a pocket when you have whole cards that match. So I have a pair of 10s, that's pocket 10s, and that's a very strong combination. I'm gonna have to put in money if I wanna play. I'd have to put in the big blind, which is 20 cents, and then match the raised 20 cents here. So I'm in for 40 cents now. So as you may have noticed, we don't have 5 cards yet. We don't know what our full combination is going to be. In poker, the winner has the best 5-card combination. We only have 2 cards. You'll see that there'll eventually be 5 community cards in the middle, and we use those to combine with our 2 cards to make the best possible combination. For now, we just bet on these 2 cards, hoping that they'll match a better combination. So now after I've gone, play goes to the next clockwise player, the small blind player. So they're in a position where they can either add money to match the big blind and the raise now, or they can fold. They have 2 cards of the same suit, which could be a flush at some point. However, their cards are fairly low. It might not make sense for them to stay in and risk it. So they can fold and they lose their token here. And so that actually goes into the middle because they're out of play. It goes into the community pot here. And finally, we go to the final player, the big blind. They have pocket 6s, and that's quite good. So they think they might win. If there's a third 6 here, they'd have 3 of a kind. They could get a full house. So not the best pocket there, but it is a pair, and so they will meet that raise. And so this player here has successfully eliminated 1 player from this round, which means they have a higher percentage chance of winning. The less people playing, the better chance you have of winning. It's just the way it works. If everybody's playing, if nobody raises and everybody's just sort of meandering, limping it's called, then you have a bigger chance of losing as the game proceeds because any of those other players could get a better combination. You're playing against terrible odds. So it comes back here, this player has raised, everybody's met who wants to meet, and so now the dealer, I take those chips from all playing players and I put them in the middle. This is our pot. And so this money cannot be touched. It doesn't belong to anybody except for the winner now. And since the small blind player has folded, we're gonna take their cards and put them in the muck pile here. And that will remain face down. It's a dealer's responsibility to not mix up the muck cards or flip them over. If they do, it'll ruin the game because people will see cards they shouldn't have seen. So the muck pile's there. It's a big responsibility. Don't mess up the muck. Once a player has raised the bid, we go around the table 1 full cycle, making sure everyone either matches the current bid or folds or raises more. If there is another raise along the way, that cycle starts anew from that player. Once that's done, the dealer moves all the play chips into the pot, and now it's time for the flop. The flop refers to the first community cards that are dealt face up on the table. These cards are available to all players in the game to combine with their private hole cards to make the best possible 5-card poker hand. Before placing these 3 community cards down, the dealer discards the top card from the deck. This is known as burning a card. You do this to help prevent cheating by ensuring that no one accidentally saw that top card. Burn the card. So you burn and you turn. The burn card goes into the muck pile. Then the next 3 cards are dealt face up in the center of the table. This is the flop. So as the dealer, I will burn 1 card into the muck pile and I'll turn 3 cards. I turn them right side up in the middle there. So these 3 cards represent the flop. The flop is now on the table. Once the flop is on the table, another round of betting occurs, starting with the player directly to the left of the dealer button who's still in the hand. So normally it would be the small blind, but since they've folded, they're out, first betting goes to the big blind. If you folded, you're out of the hand. The flop significantly influences the player's strategies as it reveals over half of the final 5-card hand each player will use. If no one has raised and on your turn you don't want to fold or raise, you can tap the table and say, I stay, and you stay in the game without adding more chips. If another player has raised the bet by announcing the amount and placed the correct chips in front of their hand, all players to their left must either fold, match the bet, or raise the bet. Once this round of betting has concluded, the dealer moves the newly played chips, if any, into the pot. So play begins to the left of the dealer button here. The small blind is now out because they folded, so it goes to the big blind player. They have pocket sixes. They also have what could be a good match is a flush, a spade, a spade, a spade. If there were two more spades by the end of the game, they would have a flush, which is a very strong hand. There's the ranking right there. So they feel good about staying because they've already put their money in, but I don't think they feel confident about raising the bet. They don't have any big matches right now. So they can tap the table or say, I check, and then play goes to the next player. This player has an ace and a 9. Also, they have 3 spades going, but they don't have any pairs, anything significant that is a winning card right now. All they have is a high card. So they'll say, or just I check, or they can just wave their hand in front of their cards, they stay. I have now a very, very strong hand. I have 3 of a kind. 3 of a kind is one of the stronger hands. It beats a high card, it beats a pair. If you look at the percentage of possibility of beating this, it's very low. So I'll say, not only do I stay, but I'm gonna raise. I'm gonna raise a blue chip here. So I put that in front of me. And now that I've raised, I put that chip in front of me, all the other players must decide whether they wanna match that or not. So this player does some soul searching. Well, maybe they'll get another 6 or spades. They're gonna stay in. So they put in another chip. This player is gonna risk it too. It might not be a wise thing to risk here, but there's nothing here that indicates that there's a big match here. No one knows that I have pocket 10s. They might just think I have, 2 4s or 2 10s or 2 2s. Doesn't seem likely that I can win here. So now that everybody has bet on the flop, dealer takes those chips and takes them away from the players and puts them into the pot here. And now that betting has concluded for the flop, we begin the turn. So same thing here, we're adding one more card to the community cards, and the 4th card is called the turn. So before the dealer deals the turn card, they must burn a card again into the muck pile, and then they turn. After the turn card is revealed, another round of betting occurs, starting with the player directly to the left of the dealer button who's still in the hand. The turn is crucial as it opens up more possibilities for making a hand and significantly impacts the strategies of the remainder of the game. After betting on the turn is complete, the game moves to the final round. So deal goes back to the big blind. They must feel pretty good because they have nearly a flush here. A flush is 5 cards of the same suit. They'll stay, they'll knock the table. Then play goes to this player. Same thing, they have 4 out of a possible 5 card flush. They'll also stay. I still have my pocket 10s and giving me a 3 of a kind here. If you feel like you have a strong enough hand, it's a good idea to pressure other players to get out of the game. I would bet another 2 blues this time to try to squeeze some of those players out of the game. If I can do that, I have a higher percentage of winning because there are less people who could possibly beat me. I raise 2 more blues. This player has not only the pocket 6s, but they also have a lot of spades. They'll risk it and put in their 2 blues. This player has no matching cards. They have a possibility of getting another spade, but it is pretty unlikely. So they'll fold. They say, I fold. They give their cards to the dealer puts them into the muck pile. After the betting of the turn is complete, now comes the river. The river. The dealer once again burns a card from the top of the deck, discarding it face down into the muck pile. The dealer then deals the final community card face up, and this is called the river card. After the river card is revealed, the final round of betting occurs, starting with the player directly to the left of the dealer button who's still in the game. This player. The river is the last chance for players to improve their hands. Betting works the same in this round. If a player has raised the bid, all other players must either fold, match, or raise. If 2 or more players remain, there's a showdown where players reveal their whole cards to determine the winner of the pot based on the best 5-card hand using any of the combination of their whole cards and the 5 community cards. The winner takes all the chips from the pot. Good job. So now we're in the river. Betting now goes to the player to the left of the dealer who's still in, and that's just this player now. And now they look at their cards, and instead of having a pair of 6s, they have a much better combination than they began with. They have a flush. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards all in the same suit. That's a flush, and that's a very strong hand. So their hand improved greatly by waiting till the very end. They're going to raise me 2 blue chips. They know I've been raising, so they probably assume that I have something good, or I could be bluffing. Well, I have my 3 of a kind, which would lose to a flush. But look, I also have a flush. I have all of these cards in the same suit, just like they do. So I have a flush as well. I'll see their 2 blue, and I'll add 2 red. Of my 3 choices, I could have folded and quit, or I could have just saw their bet and put 2 blue in, or I can raise, and I'll do that. So I see their bet, and then I add more chips in to raise, because I know I have a very strong hand. I can assume that they might also have a spade there because they did raise and we saw a final spade, but I know that my 10 is very high. This is gonna really be important because it's the highest card in the flush that works as the winning card if it's a tie. They must decide, okay, do they wanna see me now? And they will. They'll put in those 2 reds. Our cards would not be shown yet. And once they've met my raise, now we take those last chips and we put them in the middle. And you can see the pot has grown quite a bit. All those chips go to the winner. After everybody has been satisfied with the final round of betting, we have the showdown. And what we need to do is we flip over our cards. We reveal our cards and we see, oh my God, they had a flush. I had a flush. I had 3 of a kind. So after flipping the cards, we see who is the winner. So we take our best 5 cards, and in the case of these 2 players, it'll be the spades cards. The flush here is a 2, 4, 7, king, plus our 1 card. So their 6 does add to that and creates a flush, and my 10 does as well. But since my 10 card is higher, that makes it a better flush. So I get to collect all of the chips. And after the round is complete, we move the buttons. So the big blind will go 1 space, the small blind will go 1 space, and the dealer will go 1 space. And the game repeats. As the game progresses, everybody gets a chance to have these different roles and positions. So that's a complete rundown of 1 full hand. But poker isn't just about the cards you hold, it's also about strategy and deception. Players have the opportunity to bluff and convince others to fold better hands, adding an extra layer of excitement to the game. If the betting causes all but 1 player to fold, that lone remaining player wins the pot without having to show their cards, and we'll never really know if they're bluffing or not. So now let's talk about winning hands in more detail. Here's a list of the possible winning combinations. Let me walk you through them. Keep in mind that none of these, except maybe the royal flush, guarantee you a win. You win by having the best combination at the showdown phase. And if you fold, you fold. You can't win even if your hand would have been the best. High card. If no other hand is made, it's the highest card in your hand. In poker, the cards are ranked from low to high, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, jack, queen, king, and the high card is the ace. In a tie, the next highest card, the kicker, decides the winner. 1 pair. 2 cards of the same rank. The highest pair wins. If there's a tie, the highest kicker wins. 2 pair. In a tie, the highest pair win. If still tied, the second highest pair or kicker decide. 3 of a kind. 3 cards of the same rank. Straight. 5 consecutive cards of different suits. An ace can be the high or the low here. Flush. Any 5 cards of the same suit, not in sequence. In a tie, the highest card in the flush wins. Full house. 3 of a kind with a pair. In a tie, the highest 3 of a kind wins. If still tied, the pair wins. 4 of a kind. All 4 cards of the same value. Straight flush. 5 consecutive cards of the same suit. In a tie, the highest straight flush wins. Royal flush. Ace, king, queen, jack, and 10, all of the same suit. The highest possible hand in poker. What happens if there's a tie? If we both had the same situation, we both had a king 6, the pot is split evenly among those players. According to the rules of Hold'em, all 4 suits have equal standing, no suit is higher than any other. Sorry, spades. Here are a few useful terms. All in and side bets. In Texas Hold'em, you can raise by pushing all of your chips into the game. This is going all in. This can be a technique to scare other players into folding and letting the all-in player win without having to show their cards. More often, players go all in when they're almost out of chips. If other players match that raise, the all-in player stays until the showdown, or wins if all other players fold. Now, if the remaining players want to raise again, they exclude the all-in player and make new side raises, aka side bets. The dealer keeps track of the side bets and keeps it in a separate pot. If the all-in player wins at the end, they only take the chips from the main pot. The side bets are given to the non-all-in player who has the best hand. So everybody matches my all-in here, and then we put those into the pot. Now, if anybody else wants to bet, they can bet. Let's say we go on to the river, and these guys all want to bet 2 red chips. They all bet 2 red chips. Now, before the showdown happens, they take these bets and we make a side bet here. So this is the main pot and this is the side bet pot. So if I were to win, I win all of the pot chips here, but I don't win the side bet. So for example, we're at the final showdown and we have to reveal our cards. I have 4 of a kind here, and the next best player has a full house. They have 2 sevens and the 3 kings. Well, I have the highest combination of the bunch of us with 4 of a kind. So I win all of the chips in the pot. I, however, do not win these chips. These chips are separate for the players who were not all in and continued to bet on top of that all in pot. The next player to win would be this player with the full house. So they take earnings as well. So it's possible that more than one player earns a different amount if one player goes all in and betting continues from there. So I'd get all of the chips from the pot. This player would get all the chips from the side pot. Now, if it had gone the other way around and we flipped over at the end at the showdown, I have the full house and they have the 4 of a kind. They win the whole pot here and they win the side pot. And I would have nothing and I would be out of the game at that point. Bluffing. Bluffing in poker is the strategy of betting or raising with a weak hand to convince your opponents that your hand is stronger than it actually is, thereby inducing them to fold superior hands. This takes both the strategy of knowing what's on the table and how your opponents play the game. Bluffing can backfire in your face if you misjudge the table. In Texas Hold'em, as in most poker games, there's a set of unspoken rules or etiquette regarding the handling and placing of chips to ensure the game runs smoothly and fairly. Timing. Make sure to place your ante promptly when it's your turn so you don't delay the game. Calling. Announce your action. So if this player is going to call the ante, they say, I call. And they put their 2 chips up front. Place all your call bets directly in front of you, not directly into the pot, to allow the dealer to verify the amount before including it in the pot. Make sure your chips are clearly separate from your stack and the pot. So if everybody calls, the dealer can then take the chips and place them all in the pot. Stacking. When calling, stack your chips neatly so the amount is easily visible to the other players and the dealer. Raising. If you intend to raise, announce raise and the amount by which you're raising before moving your chips. I raise 4 chips. Respect the dealer. Only the dealer pulls the bets into the pot. Allow the dealer to manage the chips in the pot. Don't reach out towards the pot yourself. What's this called? That's called splashing the pot, and it's bad etiquette. You know who does that? People who eat cheese on fish. You do that, you're not ready for this poker table. Strategy. Position. Where you're sitting makes a big difference in controlling the table. The best seat in the house is usually the dealer button. Can you guess why? If you're the dealer, you get to bet last during the pre-flop. And that's a big advantage. Other players might fold, giving you a higher percentage of winning, even with a marginally good hand. Everyone else is more under the gun than you are. And the worst position is the under the gun seat. At that seat, you have no reference for how the other players are feeling about their cards. Even worse, they have to be the big and small blind in the subsequent 2 rounds. Folding. Don't be afraid to fold. The odds are against you that you will have a better hand than the many other players at the table. Be smart, read the table, and the further you are from the dealer button, the more likely it is that you should fold. As the table loses players, either from them folding or being eliminated, you have a much higher chance of winning, and you will want to play more. Don't fold all the time though. You gotta play to pay out. And if you feel good about your cards, go for it. Slow play. Getting slow played is something new players often fall victim to, and it's a strategy you should work on getting good at. It's when a player with a strong hand deliberately acts weak, betting minimally or simply calling to encourage other opponents to stay in the pot and possibly bet more thinking they have a better hand. The aim is to maximize the size of the pot before revealing the strong hand. The player who gets slow played is led to believe they have the winning hand and continues to bet only to be outdone at the end with the slow playing opponent finally showing their superior cards. Pocket pairs. If you're dealt 2 cards of the same value, you have a pocket pair. This immediately gives you an edge as you have a winning combination right out of the gate. You may want to raise the bet to pressure other players to fold before the flop, as your early starter advantage can diminish after the community cards have been revealed. Let me show you this chart. It's a common sense guideline for your pre-flop hole cards. These 2 card combinations have an edge over the others, and you'll be statistically more likely to get a win. Listen, as a casual poker player, I don't find much use in these charts and online guides. I play for fun, and I'm not gonna lie, I like to win too. I found that reading the poker table and my friends' gameplay has gotten me far more wins than any guide could. Experience and awareness are the greatest tools for playing Hold'em. I hope you give Texas Hold'em a try. It's a great way to bond with friends, and please make sure to keep the stakes low and force the winner to buy the giant sub for the next poker night. Did I get something wrong, or do you play it differently, or just want to say hi? Let me know what you think in the comments. Please subscribe, comment, and like to help this channel grow. You are great. See you next time on Playing Games.